July 26, 1944. La Roche-Guyon, northern France. Just after dawn. The Château is quiet in the early morning hours, too quiet for a nation at war. Outside, mist clings to the Seine River below the cliffs. Inside, boots echo softly across stone floors as aides move quickly, urgently, trying not to draw attention to themselves. Papers change hands. Telephones ring, then stop. Ring again. In a windowed operations room carved into centuries-old rock, Field Marshal Erwin Rommel stands over a map table. He hasn't slept. The overhead lights bleach the colors from the map, red and blue pins stabbed so densely into Normandy that the paper beneath them has begun to tear. Smoke from last night's cigarette still lingers in the air. Rommel doesn't notice it. His eyes are fixed on the western edge of the front. Something is wrong. Very wrong. A staff officer steps forward, hesitating before speaking. New reports from the American sector, Herr Feldmarschall. Rommel doesn't look up. Read them. The officer clears his throat. Enemy armored formations, advancing beyond Coutances. Rapid movement. Our forward observers report American tanks appearing south of our expected defensive belt. Rommel finally lifts his head. That is not possible, he says quietly. The officer nods because he knows it is. The German defenses are layered, planned, calculated. Every road, every hedgerow, every village accounted for. The Americans are supposed to be bogged down in the bocage, crawling forward yard by yard under artillery fire. Instead, they are moving, the officer continues, fast. Rommel steps closer to the table. Another aide joins them, breathless, holding fresh intercepts. Reconnaissance units report the same. Armor columns appearing in areas we believed impassable. Supply convoys following immediately behind. Rommel's jaw tightens. You can almost feel the temperature in the room drop. Because this is not how armies are supposed to move. For weeks, Rommel has argued with Berlin, with generals who still believe wars are won by holding lines on maps. He has warned that air power has changed everything, that once an enemy breaks through, speed will decide the outcome. Now the nightmare he predicted is unfolding in real time. He studies the markings again. The Americans have punched through near Saint-Lô. That alone is alarming. But what follows is worse. Their armored spearheads are not stopping to consolidate. They are not pausing to realign. They are not waiting for permission. They are flowing, like water through shattered stone. Rommel straightens, his expression no longer skeptical but alert, dangerous. Which unit is this? He asks. The officer answers. U.S. Third Army Elements, sir, commanded by General George S. Patton. Rommel exhales slowly through his nose. Patton. He knows the name. Every German commander does. The loud American, the theatrical one, the man they had dismissed as reckless, emotional, undisciplined. A general who talked too much. A general who, they believed, could never be trusted with something this important. Rommel had not shared that confidence. Now, looking at the map, he feels a chill he hasn't felt since North Africa. Another report arrives. Then another. American armor appearing behind German units that were supposed to be safe. Communications cut. Rear area headquarters suddenly under fire. Entire battalions reporting enemy tanks where there should be nothing but farmland. Rommel grips the edge of the table. This isn't a breakthrough. This is exploitation. And it's happening faster than German doctrine can react. He murmurs something under his breath, too low for most in the room to hear. An aide standing nearby will later recall it was not anger, not fear, but realization. Because Rommel understands something in that moment that many of his fellow commanders still do not. This is not the old war anymore. The Americans are not fighting to take ground. They are fighting to erase time. Patton's army is not advancing by the rules. It is ignoring them. German counterattack plans rely on predictability, on pauses, regrouping, hesitation, on the assumption that an enemy must stop to breathe. But the Americans are not stopping. They are driving through the night, through dust, through confusion, through units that don't even realize the front has moved. Rommel gestures to the western flank. If they continue at this speed, he says, our entire position in Normandy becomes untenable. No one responds, because they all see it now. The German army is being outrun, not defeated in battle. Outpaced. Another officer steps forward cautiously. Herr Feldmarschall, Berlin believes this may be a local success. They do not expect sustained momentum. Rommel finally turns. His eyes are sharp. They do not understand what is happening, he says. Outside, aircraft engines drone faintly in the distance, Allied fighters already hunting German roads in the morning light. Rommel knows what that means. Every mile the Americans gain today will be impossible to take back tomorrow. He had spent months reinforcing the Atlantic Wall, convinced the decisive moment would come at the beaches. But now the beaches are behind them. And the real war, the war of movement, has begun. Rommel looks again at the spreading arrows on the map. They are no longer pointing forward. They are pointing everywhere. Somewhere between the pins and the silence, the truth settles in. Germany is no longer controlling the battlefield. The battlefield is moving faster than Germany can think. And at its center is a general who believes speed is not a tactic, but a weapon. Rommel straightens slowly. If the reports are accurate, and his instincts tell him they are, then the Western Front is about to unravel. Not tomorrow, not next week, but now. And somewhere beyond those lines, Patton's tanks are already rolling toward their next objective. Rommel doesn't yet know how far they will go. Only that once unleashed, they will not wait for anyone to catch up. The room doesn't return to normal after that realization. If anything, it tightens. Rommel remains at the map table long after the aides have stepped back, his fingers tracing roads he knows by memory, routes marked in German field manuals as secondary, unsuitable, too narrow for armor. Yet those are the very lines now being overrun. Reports keep arriving. Not dramatic ones. Not heroic ones. The most terrifying kind. Dry, precise, incomplete. Enemy armor sighted near Avranches. Rear-echelon units withdrawing without contact. Telephone lines cut, cause unknown. Rommel reads each one silently. This is not how collapse announces itself. There is no great explosion, no single catastrophic battle. Just absence. German units reporting nothing where something should be. Patton's name appears again and again in intercepted transmissions. Always attached to speed. Always to confusion. And always followed by silence. Months earlier, in Berlin, Patton had been the subject of ridicule. Goebbels' propaganda ministry had painted him as a caricature, a loud American cowboy obsessed with medals and speeches. German intelligence analysts had labeled him unpredictable but strategically shallow. A showman. Rommel had read those assessments. He had not believed them. Because Rommel understood something others often forgot. Great commanders do not need to be quiet. They need to be decisive. And Patton, for all his theatrics, believed in one principle with near-religious intensity. Momentum must never die. Now that belief is tearing open the German front. The breakthrough at St. Lo had been violent, yes, but violence was expected. What followed was not. Instead of halting to reorganize, Patton unleashed the Third Army like a released spring. Armor surged through the gap. Infantry rode atop tanks, boots dangling, rifles clutched between knees. Supply trucks followed immediately behind, dust clouds rising so thick that entire columns disappeared inside them. There were no pauses for perfect alignment, no waiting for neighboring units. If a road existed, Patton used it. If it didn't, he made one. German defenses, designed to face forward, suddenly found Americans appearing on their flanks, sometimes behind them before orders even arrived. In one sector, a German battalion prepared defensive positions overnight. By morning, American tanks were already past them. They never fired a shot. Rommel receives a field report from a regimental commander who sounds shaken. "The enemy did not attack our position," the message reads. "They simply went around us." Rommel closes his eyes briefly. That sentence tells him everything. German doctrine is built around the idea of forcing the enemy to fight, to commit, to clash, to grind. Patton is refusing to do that. He is not interested in defeating units. He is interested in rendering them irrelevant. And once a unit becomes irrelevant, it may as well be dead. Another officer enters. Herr Feldmarschall, Berlin is requesting clarification. They believe our estimates may be exaggerated. Rommel doesn't turn. "They said the same in Africa," he replies calmly. In North Africa, he had watched British armored columns exploit gaps at speed, but even that had limits. This is different. The Americans are coordinating air power, logistics, and armor in a way Germany never fully achieved. Allied fighter bombers dominate the skies, shredding any German movement during daylight. That forces German units to travel only at night, slow, cautious, fragmented. Patton's army moves whenever it wants. Day, night, rain, dust. Relentless. Rommel realizes the cruel symmetry. Germany once mastered blitzkrieg, the art of fast, decisive war. Now it is being used against them. Better, faster, on a scale they can no longer match. A junior officer hesitates before speaking. "Herr Feldmarschall, some units report American tanks advancing with headlights on." Rommel looks up sharply. "Headlights?" "Yes, sir. They appear unconcerned with concealment." The implication hangs in the air. Patton's forces are moving so quickly they no longer fear ambush. Speed has become protection. Rommel walks to the window, overlooking the river valley. In the distance, faint thunder echoes artillery, far away but growing closer. He understands now why these reports feel wrong. German intelligence is trying to track an army that refuses to behave like one. There are no neat lines, no predictable axes, only motion, constant motion. Rommel speaks again, quietly, not to the room but to himself. "He is not advancing," he says. "He is escaping our grasp." And that is far more dangerous. Because once an enemy slips free, you no longer dictate the battle. You chase it. And Germany no longer has the fuel, the aircraft, or the reserves to chase anyone. A final message arrives before noon. American spearheads have reached the outskirts of Avranches, the gateway to Brittany. If Patton breaks through there, the entire western flank will open like a door blown off its hinges. Rommel stares at the map. If this continues, France will not be lost village by village. But all at once, he turns back to his staff. "Prepare contingency withdrawals," he orders. The room stiffens. Withdrawal. A word Berlin hates. A word Hitler forbids. But Rommel knows something they do not. Once speed takes over a battlefield, orders become suggestions. and Patton is already moving faster than Germany can respond. As the staff begins issuing commands, Rommel remains still, eyes on the spreading arrows. Somewhere out there, American tank engines are roaring through the dust, crews exhausted, grinning unstoppable. Rommel feels it in his bones. If Patton reaches open country, nothing will slow him. And Germany's Western Front will begin collapsing not with a scream, but with the sound of engines disappearing into the distance. Night falls unevenly over Normandy. Not with calm, but with fire. Villages burn in pockets across the countryside, orange light flickering against low clouds. Roads are clogged with retreating German columns moving without headlights, engines idling, men whispering. Every sound feels dangerous. Somewhere overhead, Allied aircraft prowl like predators. And far to the west, beyond the chaos, Patton's army is still moving. Relentlessly, German commanders along the collapsing front begin sending messages that sound less like reports and more like confessions. We cannot locate the enemy's main body. American armor appears simultaneously in multiple sectors. Our rear areas are no longer secure. Rommel reads them one by one. He recognizes the tone. It is the sound of officers losing certainty. In warfare, certainty is everything. Once it's gone, fear fills the space. German troops had been trained to expect American caution, deliberate attacks, methodical planning, heavy artillery before movement. What they are facing now feels different. Unnatural. One Panzer officer later describes it simply. They were never where we expected. They were already gone before we understood they had arrived. Patton's method is brutal in its simplicity. Drive forward. Bypass resistance. Let confusion do the killing. If a German unit resists, it is marked and isolated. Infantry and follow-on forces deal with it later. The tanks do not stop. They cannot stop. Patton has issued clear orders to his commanders. Keep moving. If you stop, you die. The result is psychological devastation. German units wake up to find American patrols behind them. Supply depots are captured without warning. Field kitchens serve breakfast to men who are already prisoners. In one instance, a German headquarters staff is still working over maps when American armored cars roll directly into the courtyard. No warning. No battle. Just disbelief. Rommel begins to understand the true danger. Patton is not merely defeating German units. He is shattering their sense of reality. War depends on orientation, knowing where you are, where the enemy is, where safety lies. Patton erases that. And when orientation collapses, discipline follows. German radio traffic reflects the change. Messages become shorter, more frantic, less professional. Enemy everywhere. Request instructions immediately. Situation unclear. Rommel recognizes the symptoms. This is how an army begins to dissolve. He orders reserves forward, but they cannot arrive. Allied aircraft on the roads by day. By night, traffic jams and confusion delay everything. Fuel shortages worsen. Vehicles abandoned by the roadside multiply. Meanwhile, Patton's logistics miracle keeps pace. Fuel trucks race forward under constant pressure. Engineers repair bridges within hours. Captured German gasoline is poured directly into American tanks. The Third Army lives off momentum. And momentum feeds itself. Rommel sits alone late into the night, studying a fresh situation map. The front no longer looks like a front. It looks like spilled ink. His aide enters quietly. Herr Feldmarschall, intelligence believes Patton intends to turn east. Rommel doesn't answer immediately. Turning east would mean racing toward the Seine, threatening to trap massive German forces still fighting the British and Canadians farther north. If Patton succeeds, entire armies could be cut off. Rommel rubs his temple. He knows what must be done. He must convince Berlin that this is not a local emergency. It is existential. But Berlin still believes in static lines, still believes in willpower, still believes in holding ground at all costs. Rommel prepares a message, carefully worded, respectful, urgent. He explains that American operational speed has outpaced German command cycles, that counterattacks cannot be assembled fast enough, that failure to withdraw now risks encirclement on a historic scale. The reply, when it comes, is devastating. Hold positions. No withdrawals without authorization. Rommel stares at the paper. He has seen this before. In Africa, in Italy. Orders written by men far from the battlefield. Men who mistake stubbornness for strength. He folds the message slowly. Out there, Patton does not wait for authorization. That is the difference. Rommel steps outside briefly into the night air. The distant thunder of engines echoes faintly. Not German. American. Moving east. Always east. He thinks of the old principles of war, mass, firepower, defense in depth. All of them meaningless if the enemy refuses to engage on your terms. Patton has turned movement into terror. German soldiers are no longer asking where the enemy is. They are asking where he will be next. And no one can answer. Rommel understands something chilling. Once fear replaces planning, the war enters its final stage. And Germany is sliding into it. Back inside the shadow, he leans over the map again. One hand rests on Normandy. The other drifts instinctively toward Paris. If Patton reaches the open plains beyond the hedgerows, there will be nothing left to slow him. No natural barriers. No prepared defenses. Only distance. And distance, Rommel knows now, favors the Americans. Because Patton is not measuring progress in miles. He is measuring it in hours. Rommel exhales. The whisper escapes him almost unwillingly. This war has changed. And somewhere beyond the darkness, the sound of engines grows closer, not toward him, but toward the heart of France, August 1st, 1944. Western France. Morning arrives without ceremony. No trumpet. No grand offensive. Just movement. American armored columns pour through avalanches like floodwater released from a dam. Tanks rumble across bridges engineers finished only hours earlier. Trucks follow bumper to bumper, dust rising so thick it turns daylight into fog. This is the moment Rommel feared. The hedgerows are behind them now. The cage is open. Beyond avalanches lies open country, wide roads, rolling terrain, long sightlines. Terrain made for speed. Terrain made for Patton. Within hours, Third Army units are advancing in multiple directions at once, Brittany to the west, the Loire to the south, the Seine to the east. German intelligence cannot classify it. Is it one thrust? 3. 5. It doesn't matter. They can't stop any of them. Rommel studies the morning reports in stunned silence. American armored spearheads have advanced distances German planning tables list as 2 to 3 days of movement. They've done it before noon. A Panzer Division commander radios in disbelief. Enemy columns moving continuously, no halts observed. Rommel closes his eyes. No halts. That means crews eating in their seats, drivers switching only when engines overheat, officers navigating by instinct instead of orders. This is warfare stripped to its rawest form. Speed or death. German units attempt counterattacks, brave, disciplined, doomed. They arrive late. They strike where the Americans were yesterday. Patton's tanks are already beyond them. By afternoon, German rear area command posts are collapsing one after another. Telephones ring endlessly. No one knows who is in command anymore. Some officers attempt to reorganize defense lines, only to discover American patrols already probing behind them. The realization spreads. There is no front, only penetration. Rommel sends urgent messages to Army Group B. If withdrawals are not authorized immediately, encirclement is inevitable. The reply never comes. Berlin is silent, or worse, indifferent. Rommel understands the cruel truth. Germany's decision-making process is now slower than Patton's movement cycle. That alone decides the outcome. In the chaos, Rommel prepares to move forward to personally assess the situation. He believes seeing the battlefield firsthand may allow him to impose order. It is a dangerous decision. Allied aircraft dominate the skies. But Rommel has never commanded from a bunker. His staff urges caution. He waves it away. If the front is collapsing, he says, I must see it collapse. His staff car departs along a tree-lined road near Liverot. The air is still, deceptively calm. Then, without warning, fighter aircraft scream down from the clouds. Machine gun fire tears across the road. The driver swerves violently. The car flips. Metal shrieks. Glass explodes. Rommel is thrown against the frame. When the dust settles, he lies unconscious, skull fractured, face bloodied. The commander, who understands what is happening, is suddenly gone. News spreads quickly. Field Marshal Rommel has been badly wounded. Removed from command. For the German army, the timing could not be worse. The one man who recognized the danger of Patton's speed, who understood what kind of war this had become, is no longer there to fight it. Leadership fractures. Decisions stall. Confusion deepens. Meanwhile, Patton keeps moving. The Americans race across Brittany, capturing ports, cutting rail lines, isolating German garrisons that never see an enemy soldier until surrender demands arrive. Entire formations are trapped not by battle, but by geography. German soldiers begin abandoning heavy equipment simply to escape encirclement. Maps become useless. Routes vanish as American columns appear unexpectedly on every axis. One German officer writes later, "We were not defeated by force, we were defeated by time." By mid-August, the consequences are undeniable. Patton's advance threat to trap hundreds of thousands of German troops still fighting in Normandy. The jaws of what will become the Falaise pocket begin to close. Rommel lies in a hospital bed, semi-conscious, unaware of the full scale of the catastrophe unfolding, but his earlier fears are becoming reality. The Western Front has not been pushed back. It has been torn open, and Patton's tanks are now driving straight toward the interior of France. For the men still trying to hold the line, one terrifying truth becomes clear. The Americans are no longer trying to defeat Germany's army. They are trying to outrun it. And they are winning. As dust clouds roll eastward and the sound of engines never fades, a new question spreads through German headquarters like a whisper. If Patton is moving this fast now, what happens when nothing stands in his way? Because beyond Normandy lies Paris. Beyond Paris lies the German border. And between them, there is no army left strong enough to stop him. The hospital room is dim. Curtains drawn, air thick with antiseptic and summer heat. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel lies motionless, bandages wrapped around his head, his face swollen from the crash. Outside, the war he tried to warn against is accelerating beyond control. He will never return to command. And with his absence, the last coherent German response in the West disappears. Back at headquarters, officers argue over maps that are already outdated by the time ink touches paper. Patton's tanks have crossed distances that once took armies weeks. Now they take days, sometimes hours. American armored columns roll through French towns to stunned silence, civilians stepping cautiously from doorways, unsure whether to cheer or hide. Liberation arrives not with buildup, but with thunder. German units retreat eastward in fragments. Some fight, some flee, many simply vanish. By the time the Falaise pocket begins to close, the scale of disaster becomes undeniable. Entire German divisions are trapped. Roads clog with wreckage, burned trucks, abandoned guns, dead horses, shattered armor. The smell of smoke and decay hangs over the countryside. This is what happens when speed meets paralysis. Later, German officers will say the same thing again and again. We never had time to think. That is Patton's true victory. Not firepower, not numbers, time. He stole it. Rommel, before losing consciousness after the attack, reportedly murmured something to an aide who leaned close. The words are not recorded officially, but the man later told another officer what he believed he heard. A whisper. They have learned how to move faster than war itself. Whether exact or not, the meaning is unmistakable. Rommel understood. Too late. By September, Patton's Third Army reaches the Moselle River. The pace finally slows, not because of German resistance, but because even miracles run out of fuel. Yet the damage is done. France is effectively lost. The myth of German operational superiority lies buried under dust and burned-out vehicles. What once made Germany terrifying, rapid maneuver, now belongs to the Americans. Patton did not invent blitzkrieg. He perfected it. And he proved something no German general ever wanted to admit. That war in the modern age belongs not to the strongest army, but to the fastest mind. As autumn approaches, German soldiers dig in along their own borders, exhausted, shaken, older than they were months earlier. They speak of Patton in low voices, not as a man, but as motion, as inevitability, as the sound of engines that never seem to stop. Rommel survives the crash, but he does not survive the regime. Within months, he will be forced into silence forever, a tragic end for a commander who saw the truth and could not change it. The war continues. More blood will be spilled. More cities will burn. But something irreversible has already happened in the summer of 1944. The German army has lost control of time. And once that happens, defeat is no longer a question of if, only when. The whisper Rommel gave, whether spoken aloud or carried only in thought, echoes through history. A moment when one of Germany's greatest commanders looked at a map and realized the war had slipped beyond his grasp.